All right, everyone. Theresa May was roundly defeated on her particular Brexit deal. Now, first and foremost, like if I was in Parliament there, and I would have been a supporter of Brexit if I was British, I would have voted against it too. Because Theresa May's deal essentially is the same as not having a Brexit. What her deal entails is, hey, the EU will rule over us. We will be a vassal of the EU. We're going to get even crappier trade deals than we had before that caused Brexit in the first place. But we won't even get to vote on anything. We won't even have a seat at the table within Brussels. We'll simply be a total vassal. We'll be humiliated entirely. That's what her deal entailed. Now, here's why that deal was designed the way it was. Here's why Theresa May immediately, day one, goes in and tells Brussels, yeah, everything's on the table and we've got a limitless timeline and we're willing to negotiate, we're willing to give up this, and this, and please let us have that. And they say no, and she says, okay, well, we'll negotiate on that one thing that we wanted, which is like resistance to free movement of people or something. Basically, the reason why is this. Theresa May and her masters are not pro-Brexit. They're anti-Brexit. They were Remainers, every single one of them. They were specifically put in there to sabotage a proper Brexit deal to create as much pain, chaos, and suffering as possible in hopes that the people of the UK would sour on the idea of continuing to bother and end up begging to remain in the EU. If that does not happen, I'll tell you what I expect to happen. Brexit probably goes through. You have a hard Brexit, no deal Brexit. The UK is officially out. All those trade deals lapse. What will happen is that a combination of direct incompetence and sabotage by your own government will lead to a situation in which they will bring down your economy and take you down a peg in every possible respect in order to cause as much of a problem as possible so that a year or two later they can say, okay, well, it's obvious that being out of the EU is a disaster for the UK, and they'll harangue about this every other day. They'll blame Brexit for the problem that they themselves are creating. They'll sabotage your economy, possibly even your military. They'll screw with your diplomatic relations. They'll hire bomb-throwing anarchists at some point, probably to just cause riots. They'll cause problems, bring down your economy, and then they'll tell you, oh, well, there's an easy solution. Let's beg to be back in the EU on the same terms we were in before. Weren't things great in the good old days back when we weren't in a depression and at war with people on our own streets, people? And crime is up, and there's recession, and there's unemployment, and we can't trade, and it's terrible. That's because by structure, they will have created that situation, because they're the ones with the power. They're the ones that do all your policies. Now they're talking about, oh, well, Corbyn might become prime minister. Okay, is he Red Ed? No, not Red Ed. No, that's not Red Ed. Jeremy Corbyn's a different dude. He's just a different type of communist. He's also, isn't he an anti-Semite, like in the more literal sense? It's really funny. It's like, we need to crack down on hate online. Let's have a prime minister that says crazy shit all the time so we can alienate more nations, especially the U.S. with its own policies with regards to the Middle East. That's a good idea since you won't be in the EU. You see how it's beginning to take form? They want to fuck your economy so that you'll want to remain in the EU. And they'll probably be successful because a lot of people, they'll be distracted. It's like a magic show. One hand is moving over here, the other one's performing the trick. They've got you looking at the news right now and you can say, well, it's chaos and it's all Brexit's fault. No, it's chaos because of people that didn't want Brexit sabotaging the Brexit negotiations. You should have taken Nigel Farage and had him handle the situation. Farage should have been immediately put into position where he could handle the negotiations himself. He should have been allocated to a top slot there, at least in an advisory position. I can guarantee his advice would have been, day one, Theresa, you should go in there and you should say, we're willing to give up basically everything and beg you for a couple of other meaningless things, and that's the Brexit we want. Knowing full well that a lot of those countries want to kick you out so that you can go into recession, so your own politicians can bring the whole game down and then years later get back into the EU. And why do they want to be in the EU? Think about it logically. Why does globalism exist? Why would rich people want a supposedly neoliberal world order? It's because their partners, the way they get their money is multinationalism. They don't get it, a senator in the U.S. Senate or a person in your parliament. Most of their wealth and prestige comes from a multinational system of corporations and post-national governments. It does not come primarily from the salary that they're getting from their own taxpayers. It's peanuts. The amount that a U.S. Senator makes, while high, comparatively to the population, it's usually what, $100,000, $200,000 a year. It's pretty good. They can make millions of dollars a year by giving kickbacks to corporations. You know, look what the Clintons did on the last day of the Bubba Bill presidency, pardoning a bunch of mafia leaders. Oh my God, there was totally no exchange of goods or services there. He just did it out of the kindness of his heart. Oh, this person only killed 3 people. I'm gonna commute his sentence. Yeah, I totally didn't get anything in one of my wife's slush funds for her Senate run for it. Totally never fucking happened. Of course it did. It's how politics works. Do you honestly think the people in the EU are any different? And they represent a deliberately post-national authority. Here they at least have to pretend to care about the nation. Over there it's expected, people within your political system are expected to bow before an arrangement of other states and simply kind of represent their own. But they have to work together. We need open borders. We need to share the money around. Maybe we need one military. But we're sovereign nations, everyone. No, it's an attempt to create a post-national federation of states that no longer will exist eventually. It's an attempt to homogenize the whole continent into one amorphous blob that will not work. It'll be dysfunctional, but it'll be really, really good for the people at the top. It'll allow them to squirrel away, to embezzle more of your wealth. That's what happens. It's like when The Economist a year ago said, well, if we erased borders in the world, we could generate an extra like $13 trillion of wealth over the next 10 years. Yes, and 12.9 trillion of that would go into the hands of a few thousand people, and most of the rest would go into the hands of the next million under them. Oh, well, I'm going to give you a bonus. Instead of making 100K a year, you're making 110K. See, we're sharing the wealth around. We gave the janitor more welfare. That's essentially how globalism works. They want you to stay in the EU, but they're willing to let you get jettisoned out of it for a year or two. They're willing to take the hit. They'll let the local politicians screw with your economy. If a Brexit happens, it's no longer even clear it'll go through. It might be stopped altogether. Now, doesn't that chap your ass a little bit that more than half your population can want something be offered the referendum, fully legally, offered by those same globalists, and then like, well, we're not actually going to let it happen. We're going to let it fall through entirely, or we're going to make it so painful that you, the little people, will eventually come begging back to us, the benevolent, smart, ultra-elite, rich people, and you'll want to stop Brexit too. That's about all. Peace out.